Good afternoon, everybody. We'll give folks a few minutes to join. Thanks for joining today.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon. I think we still have some folks coming in. Hello, everybody. My name is May Makaba. Thank you so much for joining us today for the SSBCI Capital Quarterly Reporting Training for Q2 reporting. Just for everybody's awareness, we're going to record this training so we can share it. So you can share with your team members and any new hires on your team, or you can reference it as you complete your quarterly reporting training for quarterly reporting for quarter 2, and our data is due by July 30th. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Again, our goal today is to walk everybody through the process for completing and submitting your quarterly reports, and not just showing us your EOT data, your expanded obligated data as of June 30th. I'm sorry for reporting period for April 1st to June 30th. And this report, the reporting window will open July 1st, and it will close July 30th. And just for correction, this is for reporting period from April 1st to June 30th. And the reporting window will open July 1st, and you have until July 30th at 11:55 p.m. Eastern Time to submit your quarterly reports. This training does include folks that are going to report for quarter 2. Also, we invited folks that are going to report for the next quarter, which will be, they won't report until October, which is quarter 3 reporting. Throughout this training, we will reserve time for questions, but we also encourage you to submit your questions via the chat, or just come off mute and jump in with your questions throughout the conversation. If you want to get any written responses to your questions, we will encourage you to send them to the mailbox, which is ssbci_information@treasury.gov. And we just ask you to please include your outreach manager on that communication. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues who will lead this session today. Sue Chang on the compliance team will provide an overview of the quarterly reporting requirements. It will also highlight some best practices related to reporting program income, administrative expenses, and tips and other things that will be useful related to adjustments and also explanations for adjustments. Anya Sorensen will also walk us through the template, and she will provide how to complete all the different buckets of the template: EOT data, expanded obligated data related to all your approved programs. Also, she will walk you through the administrative cost reporting and any program income related and any adjustments. So she will highlight all the things that Sue talks about related to the template. Jay Flowers will walk you through a demo of how to access your template and submit it in the reporting portal. We'll ask everybody, especially for the new folks, we do encourage you to go and access or check your access related to the portal to make sure you can download your template and start playing with that and make sure any data, any application related data is correct. So please do that. Even during this call, Jay will encourage you to do that. And of course, Raisa Muamud will jump in and she will provide some of the good Q&A. So we encourage you to stay on. We made this session a little longer and we do appreciate your patience with this process. I will stop talking and turn it over to my colleague Sue Chang, who will walk you through an overview of the reporting process. And again, please jump in with any questions, and we do appreciate your time today. Thank you, everybody. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayma. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining today's quarterly reporting training. As Mayma mentioned, I will provide an overview of the quarterly reporting requirements, and we'll cover some of the data elements on the quarterly report. And then Anya will follow after that with demonstrating on completing the template. So we'll start with the first slide on what is quarterly reporting. Thank you. The capital reporting guidance sets out reporting requirements for jurisdictions that receive SSBCI funds. To facilitate your reporting requirement, Treasury has created a customized reporting template for each jurisdiction, and we pre-populated some of the data elements, which Anya will go into detail later. If any of the pre-populated data is incorrect or incomplete, please let us know before you submit your quarterly report. There are 6 data elements to the quarterly report template that the jurisdiction should complete, and they are shown on this slide. Again, Anya would demonstrate these 6 data elements later in the presentation. We encourage jurisdictions to review the capital guidelines and capital guidance on specific data to report. We will move on to the next slide on when our quarterly reports due to Treasury. Quarterly reports must be submitted to Treasury 30 days after the end of the quarterly reporting period. For second quarter reporting, the portal will open for submission on July 1st and closes on July 30th. We will send out email reminders to all participating jurisdictions that are required to report at the beginning of the submission window, and we'll send additional reminders prior to the submission deadline. Moving to the next slide. Each jurisdiction is required to submit a quarterly report starting with the quarter after the signing of your allocation agreement. So, for example, if a jurisdiction that signed the allocation agreement in January, which is in Q1, your first quarterly reporting requirement starts in Q2. And for jurisdictions that signed the allocation agreement in the second quarter, you are required to submit your quarterly report starting in the third quarter. The second quarter templates are currently available for download for all jurisdictions that are required to report for quarter ending June 30th. The submission deadline for second quarter close falls on July 30th. But jurisdiction can upload their completed template at any time during the submission window. Okay, we will move on to the next slide on EOT. EOT, which is expended, obligated, or transferred. The first point I want to clarify is that only SSBCI funds are reported on the quarterly report. That should not include any private capital. Starting on the left for expended, for transactions to be considered expended, SSBCI funds must be dispersed to a specific borrower in a direct lending companion loan transaction, dispersed to a lender as part of a set aside to cover a loan guarantee, collateral deposit, or purchase participation for a specific transaction that has closed. For a cap transaction, funds deposit with the lender to the cap reserve account, or for a VC and equity direct transaction, SSBCI funds must be directly invested in a specific business. Moving to the next column, obligated. For transactions to be considered obligated, SSBCI funds must be committed, pledged, or promised in writing to a lender or a borrower as part of a loan participation that has not closed, or committed, pledged, or promised in writing to a lender to cover a loan guarantee and collateral deposit, and the loan has not yet closed. For direct equity investment, an obligation is a signed term sheet committing the capital, but the funds have not been invested in the business. And for a VC fund investment, a commitment to a VC fund through a signed LPA agreement, and note that the obligation is at the fund level. In the last column, we have transfer. The main thing to know for transfer is that there should be a documented need to fund a loan transaction or investment or to pay for allowable expenses. Okay, we will move on to the next slide on reporting program EOT administrative costs. Program funds EOT should only include loans, investment, and funds to be used for 171 fees for services for portfolio companies. all of the other expenses are considered administrative and should be reported in the administrative cost field. Therefore, VC committed capital for administrative costs should not be included in the program fund's EOT. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide on reporting VC fund commitments. VC operating expenses such as fund formation costs should be reported as administrative costs in a VC fund transaction. The budgeted operating expenses should be subtracted from the total commitment amount, and the amount expended for VC operating expenses should be reported as admin EOT. I will take you through an example of a VC commitment reporting. As shown on this slide, we have a jurisdiction that makes an SSBCI fund commitment of $1 million to a venture fund. This is represented as number 1 on the slide. The $1 million commitment includes 171 fees and operating expense budget. So that's represented as 2 and 3. The 171 of 171,000, the admin cost, the budget admin cost of 36,000. The program EOT that should be reported on the quarter report is the commitment amount minus the budgeted operating expenses. The commitment amount is 1 million, and the budget operating expenses is 36,000, which gets you to 964,000. This is the amount that should be reported on the program allocated EOT line of the quarter report. The admin cost that should be reported on the quarter report should be the actual incurred operating expenses. So this is the expended amount. In this example, the jurisdiction should report 5,000 and funds EOT for administrative costs. This is shown as item 4 on the slide. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide on reporting program income. Okay, program income received by the jurisdiction as directly generated by an SSBCI supported activity or earned as a result of SSBCI funds during the program period should be reported in the quarter report. And interest earned on SSBCI funds not invested or lent to small businesses count as program income and should also be reported in the quarter report. And when there's an income generated by an approved program that includes non-SSBCI, jurisdictions should report only the pro rata share of the income that is attributable to SSBCI. The last thing I want to point out on this slide is that for jurisdictions that have program income earned but have not been reported in the prior quarter, may report the prior quarter income as an adjustment on the quarter report. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide on program income administrative expenses. Okay. Jurisdictions may offset administrative expenses with program income, provided that there's sufficient program income for the offset. Program income and administrative costs should both be reduced by the amount of the offset as shown on this slide. Okay, so in this example, in the second quarter, jurisdiction A used $250,000 of program income to offset administrative costs. But $250,000 should be shown on both the program income line and the admin line on the quarter report and should not be netted against the Q2 program income. We want to highlight that in the admin expenses that have been offset by program income cannot be counted towards the EOT requirement for your subsequent tranche request. So please keep this in mind if you are offsetting any admin expenses using program income. Okay, we will move on to the next slide on recycle funds. Thank you. SSBCI funds are only considered recycle funds once the funds are redeployed into new loans or investments. Until the funds are redeployed into new loans or investments, jurisdictions should hold any return SSBCI invested capital. As an example, a $100,000 loan repayment should be reported as a recycle fund once the funds are redeployed into a new loan. Or for return invested capital, the return of capital should be reported as recycle funds once it's redeployed into a new investment. Okay, we'll move on to the next one, adjustments to quarter report. For jurisdictions that are reporting for the first time, you should not have any adjustments to your report, but you may have adjustments in the future quarters. Acceptable reasons for adjustments include removing an obligated loan or investment that is no longer expected to close, correcting a clerical error such as transposition of a number or when directed by SSBCI. If a jurisdiction has large adjustments or swings from one court to another, we recommend letting us know before submitting your court report. If you do have adjustment to report, please provide a brief explanation for the adjustment in the additional information section of the court report. We have included on this slide some examples that you may consider when providing explanation. While there's no character limit, the explanation should be brief and to the point and should include an explanation regarding the full amount of the adjustment. Okay, moving to the next slide. Okay, for jurisdictions reporting for the first time and have EOT from a quarter prior to the first full reporting period, jurisdictions should report the prior quarter activity along with the current quarter activity in the current quarter field. For example, if a jurisdiction executes the allocation agreement in January, which is in Q1, and EOT'd funds of $100 for the LPP program, and during the second quarter, which is the first time the jurisdiction will be reporting, the jurisdiction EOT funds of $200. For the second quarter reporting, the jurisdiction should input $300 in the current quarter input field. Another example would be if a jurisdiction has program income from the quarter prior to the required reporting period. The jurisdiction should report the prior quarter income along with the current quarter income in the current quarter field of the court report. Okay, moving on to the next slide. The next three slides will be on unenrollment. So for jurisdictions that may wish to unenroll, a close or use of administrative expenses when a jurisdiction identifies a non-compliant use of funds. However, Treasury's written approval is needed before a jurisdiction can unenroll a non-compliant transaction. If a jurisdiction identifies a non-compliant use of SSBCI funds, the jurisdiction should notify Treasury prior to taking any unenrollment and replenishment action, even if the transaction has not been reported to Treasury. Okay, next slide. Until the unenrollment process has been completed, jurisdictions should be using the modified certification on the use of funds when submitting your close report. If you have potential non-compliant transaction and you don't see the modified cert language in section 4 of the portal, please reach out to your outreach manager immediately, and we will work with you to change the modified certification in the portal before you submit your close report. Jay will cover the certification process in the portal later in the training. When the unenrollment process is completed, jurisdiction should then report the amount of the unenrolled transaction as an adjustment on the close report. A completed unenrollment process includes a conditional approval from Treasury to unenroll the non-compliant transaction and documentation showing the replenishment of funds. We advise jurisdictions to reach out to your outreach manager to discuss any potential non-compliant transactions. Okay. In the next slide, I will go over an example of a timeline for a jurisdiction going through an unenrollment process. So jurisdiction A identifies a non-compliant transaction in May, which is during Q2. The jurisdiction contacts the outreach manager, letting them know they have potential non-compliant transaction and provides details of the transaction and the jurisdiction's intent to unenroll. And in the second quarter, which is in June, which is still in the second quarter, the jurisdiction receives a conditional approval from Treasury via email. The conditional approval contains instructions for jurisdiction to go about replenishing the relevant SSBCI program account and documentation for replenishment. Jurisdiction A then replenished the SSBCI account at the end of June, which is we're still in Q2, and sends their documentation and certification in July. which is after the reporting period for second quarter, but before the submission deadline. Okay. With that, we're going to go through these 3 questions. Does jurisdiction A need to submit a modified certification for Q2 reporting? The answer is no, because the replenishment took place within the second quarter reporting. Okay, the second question is, does jurisdiction A need to report an adjustment for second quarter reporting for the amount of the unenrolled transaction? Okay, the answer is yes. If the transaction has been previously reported to SSBCI, the jurisdiction needs to report the amount of the unenrolled transaction as an adjustment on the second quarter report. Okay. The last question is, does jurisdiction A need to submit a modified certification for second quarter reporting if jurisdiction A replenished the account, SSBCI account, in July? But keep in mind, this is after the second quarter reporting period, but before the second quarter submission deadline. Okay, the answer should be yes, since the replenishment took place outside the second quarter reporting period, jurisdiction A would need to submit a modified certification. Okay, so that's the section on enrollment. We will, again, we advise any jurisdictions to reach out to your outreach manager to discuss any potential non-compliant transaction. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide on some tips. On this slide, we put together a few quarterly reporting tips that you may find helpful when you complete your quarterly report. The quarterly report contains data validation and conditional formatting, which Anya will show you later in the presentation. The most important thing to note is that please do not submit your quarterly report if any of the fields are red. If you are unsure how to correct the fields that are red, please reach out to your outreach manager before submitting your quarterly report. Okay, we will move on to the next slide on accessing the quarterly report. Okay, a user will have a different level of access based on their assigned role in the portal. And Jay Flowers will go over the different levels of access in his demonstration later. I want to highlight a few things on the different levels here. The most restrictive role is the account administrator, and the least restrictive is the account representative role. The account representative role can view, download, upload a completed report, and is the only user who can certify and submit report. And if the user does not have an authorized representative role, an error message will appear, preventing the user from submitting the report. And that concludes my section of the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. You can go off mute or feel free to drop your questions to me in the chat. And also you'll have opportunity to ask questions later at the end of the training as well. So you don't have to ask right now if you can think of any. But feel free to go off mute if you have questions. Thank you. Okay, we don't, okay, if you don't have any questions, I will, going once, twice, no? Okay, well, I will pass over to Anya now, who will go over how to complete the template. Thank you so much.